Hello, and thank you for joining us for New Frontier Minerals shareholder and investor webinar today. ASX ticker is NFM. And I'd like to say thank you for Joel Logan, Non-Executive Director, for joining us today.
Thanks, Mel. Happy to be here.
And Kevin Das, Senior Technical Consultant, who will be running through the exciting projects and what's been happening and what is to come. So I'm going to hand it over to Joel in a minute. If there are any questions as the gentlemen go through their presentation, there is a chat box at the bottom of the screen. Only I'll be viewing those questions and I'll be able to ask, and the guys at the end of the presentation will get through as many as we can. But yeah, drop in questions as you go, and take it away, Joel. I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Mel. So we've been fortunate to have Kevin Das act as a senior technical consultant with over 25 years worth of corporate experience and 14 years worth of rare earth exploration. He played a pivotal role in the discovery of the Browns Range discovery, and Kevin will be using his expertise to look into the Harts Range project with the NFM team. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kevin Das.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Mel. Thanks all for logging on and viewing the presentation. We're just going to go through the Harts Range project, but also take a little bit of a look at New Frontier Minerals. So we go to the next slide, Mel. Okay. New Frontier Minerals, heavy rare earths, copper, uranium. We're listed on Australian Stock Exchange and London Stock Exchange as well. And we'll just go next slide. So this is a bit of our value proposition, and essentially what New Frontier wants to do. We really want to deliver value through exploration and development. Harts Range, which is our new recently acquired project, is really our exploration play. Very exciting project in the Northern Territory. Some very high grade, high value rare earth, uranium, niobium, and presently in rock chips. But you know, we're undertaking a lot of exploration work to really advance the project there. And you know, for shareholders, that's really a blue sky exploration to discovery opportunity there. Our Northwest Queensland copper project, we've got a resource on there, 2.1 million tonnes, 1.1% copper. Very exciting place to be exploring for copper. If you're going to be you know, playing in the copper space, there's probably not a lot of places in Australia you want to be, but you know, Queensland, that Mount Isa district, you know, I kind of really see it as the Beverly Hills of that copper belt. And I've got a very exciting project there that we're going to try and get a pathway to production going. So essentially our corporate strategy, what the company's been doing is really divesting non-core assets over the last 6 months to really generate cash flow and really fund the future of the company. And really the primary objective is to really go after the low-hanging fruit. And I think in today's world, as an exploration junior, to have 4, 5, 6 projects, it's probably a little bit unrealistic, especially with the cash and the technical resources available to really do justice and do all of those projects well. So we've really focused in on the low-hanging fruit, which we believe is got the best chance of delivering shareholder value. So that's our you know, one of our catch cries, delivering shareholder value through exploration and development, and hopefully we can demonstrate that and execute our strategy for shareholders. So next slide, Mel. Okay, just to talk a little bit about the Harts Range project. Harts Range is smack bang in the middle of Australia in the Northern Territory. Northern Territory is a fantastic jurisdiction. There we're chasing heavy rare earths, niobium, uranium. Just to tell you a little bit more about that project, you can see firstly here with the location access infrastructure is fantastic. The project sits 140 kilometers northeast of Alice Springs. It's really a short flight, 2.5-hour flight from Perth. You're in Alice Springs, you pick up a 4-wheel drive at Thrifty, and then you head straight up the Stewart Highway, and then you head east on the Plenty Highway. Fantastic, well-maintained sealed roads. And once you get to the turn off the site, the tenements actually reside on the Mount Riddick Pastoral Station, well-maintained pastoral tracks that head straight down to the two primary tenements. We have a really good relationship with a landowner, with a pastoralist there, and access is fantastic. Something else to note, sorry, just go back, Mel. Just to note is the tenements have gone to grant with no native title objections. They've done the Section 29, the 4-month notice period. No groups have come forward. And so what that really means is there's no costly heritage surveys. And from a time perspective, we can kind of get on the ground and start exploring, commencing our exploration activities. You can see the land package there, our two main tenements to the west. But the area is very tightly held, even though it looks like there's tenure, vacant ground. It's actually, there's no ground available, and you can actually see we're surrounded by major IGO, who's got a very large land holding in the area as well. So excellent location, access and infrastructure for the project. So next slide. So just a little bit about the geological setting there. You can see that we're on the western flank of the Entia Dome. What's really attractive about these dome structures is that these domes create a lot of uplift, and around the edges of the dome you see a lot of structure and a lot of faults. And what this represents is just these structures and faults are fluid pathways for metals to come up and to deposit out. And we're very fortunate to have a lot of this geology, very unique geology in that Entia Dome. The area's been explored for a whole bunch of things, from uranium and vermiculite rubies. There's base metals. There's a whole bunch of things there, but there's geology and structures very key here. And some of the early work done by the Adelaide University has indicated that some of these structures are very deep mantle tapping structures. So essentially, some of the theories are is that this is a kind of an ancient, kind of deep crustal subduction zone type setting where some of these structures are tapping the mantle, where a lot of these fluids carrying metals can really come forward. So very exciting geology, and we think that's a big tick for the project. Next slide. So here's just a couple of pictures we can see from some recent site visits. We've done 3 reconnaissance programs to site there, and you can see actually the picture in the middle, our director, non-executive director Joel Logan, with one of our fieldies at site there. They're standing in the foreground of cusp. That's a cusp. You can see the cusp outcrop there with the quartz blow at the top there. And it was very exciting to kind of get on the ground and actually see some of this. To the left, we've got some of our samples there. These are from the pegmatites. You can see the dark minerals. They're your minerals that carry your rich uranium, niobium, and heavy rare earths. And it's part of the way you've identified these is with a Geiger counter, with a radii that the guys carry around in their waist, and as the Geiger counter goes off, you can kind of vector in and zone into mineralized outcrops and areas, which is quite exciting. And then to the far right, we've got a picture of the Bob's outcrop there. It's again quartz vein at the top, but then the pegmatite kind of spreads out on either side there, and that's kind of where our 2 primary mineralized sites. And Joel, I mean, you're out at site with us, and several occasions. What were your thoughts when we were kind of looking for some of this mineralization?
Yeah, no, it was great to get to site and see the outcrops firsthand, and the access is something to that we're pretty happy about. It's very easy to get there from the Plenty Highway, and then there's pastoral tracks as well, which pass through these outcrops, which make it even easier. We don't have to walk too far to get to the outcrops, so that's not too bad. And yeah, and obviously very mineralized. You mentioned the Geiger counter before, Kevin. Before we even got to cusp, as we were standing above it, before we could even pull it out of our pocket, it was going off. So it's good to get to site and to be able to check the historical sites and see get the grades that we got from the rock chip samples.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're just going to zoom in a little bit more. So in the picture you saw before with the two gentlemen that's in front of cusp, this is cusp from a plan view, and cusp is a 70 meter long pegmatite, about 10 meters thick, and that's just what's been mapped as the parts that are outcropping or daylighting. And you can see there's a whole bunch of samples that they took, and these are all historic samples. A lot of them are historic samples taken early 2000s from the early explorers there. And one of the things we wanted to do is really validate that when heading to site and do our mineral forensics to really, all our ratios to make sure that these weren't, erroneous, or some of the sample techniques or methods were wrong. And so we went out, you can see some of the blue samples there in the table. They were the ones that were taken when we went to site, just to really do our validation. And you can see the numbers that came back with the niobium, uranium, and the heavy rare earths. Even the tantalum numbers are really high, and they're just as good as a historic, if not in some cases better. So that really was a real important validation for us to really know that this mineralization is real. And to be able to replicate that was key. So this is cusp. This is one of the main historical prospects that we've identified there. And next slide, we're going to look at the Bobs prospect. Bobs is about 1.6 kilometers further to the west. And we'll just change slides there, Mel. Just one back. Okay, so Bobs, again, very similar pegmatite. Same geology, same geological setting as cusp. This is a bit what's daylighting. It's a little bit smaller. It's about 30 meters in length, about 5 meters in thickness. This is the only portion that we're seeing at surface. Obviously, at depth, this thing could be a lot bigger, a lot thicker, and have a much more significant strike length. We're not going to know that until we drill it. And just as a note, both of these prospects have never been drilled before. Simply because the focus of the project's been on rubies, garnets, and other minerals there. So interestingly enough, Bobs and cusp sit on the same structure. It's a very prominent east-west trending structure. You can see it in the geophysics. You can see it in the aerial photography. And we believe that that's a mineralizing or a controlling structure where some of the mineralization has come to surface, and maybe exploring along that structure may be a key technique and something that we would look at. But again, we're seeing the same kind of magnitude of these assay results for your niobium, uranium, and heavy rare earths. One of the things we really want to try and do is really understand the mineralization so we can replicate more of these occurrences. And similar to cusp, the team went out to site. We did some forensics, sampled the two samples on the table in the blue, and just to line them up, just to make sure that these results were actually real. And all the numbers that came back were, in some cases, significantly higher, but also the ratios kind of match. So very happy with our validation there. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so one of the key things we've really done is it's great that we've got Bobs and cusp, and you can see that this is an enhanced radiometric image there, and it's a uranium squared over thorium, and that just allows us to filter out some of the uranium noise from the bedrock. And you can actually see Bobs and cusp really light up as discrete uranium anomalies. And this is really key, because what that allows us to do is, we know that uranium is a critical pathfinder to these high value heavy rare earths. And if we can, isolate these anomalies on a regional level, what that allows us to do is to actually head out to site to all these discrete anomalies and really look for more of these mineral occurrences. Otherwise, trying to find more of these bobs and cusp type targets, it's actually looking for a needle in a haystack, and the team could be out there for 2-3 years to do this. So we flew this airborne geophysics, radiometrics, magnetics in January, 50-meter space lines, very detailed geophysics. The raw data has been processed by consultants, Southern Geoscience, and first pass radiometric imagery has been received. The team's been going through that and preparing and getting targets lined up for field truthing, ground truthing. And what we're now waiting on is a detailed magnetic interpretation of the mag data. And so once that comes through, we'll have a complete data set of the surface geochemistry, or the rock chips, the radiometric images, and then the magnetic images. And we can start to overlay all of those bits of information and then really identify targets. Now, all of a sudden, you'd be seeing, three of these layers start to all tick boxes. Then all of a sudden, some of these targets start to get prioritized for drilling. So uranium is very key in the identification of your heavy earths, and that is actually the key mineral that allows to vector in. And in saying that, some of the uranium numbers that we're getting, 10%, they're some of the highest grades that are probably seen in Australia. And so, you don't want to rule out that there could be an economic uranium deposit somewhere here as well. So again, we're going to keep our eyes open. It's a multi commodity kind of mineral, and very exciting. Let's go to our next slide. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this here is we're zooming out a little bit more. You can kind of see bobs and cusps. And one of the things we did last month is we did a satellite interpretation of all the pegmatites in there, and you can see them in the yellow there. There's a lot of pegmatites that have been interpreted, and some we've probably missed, and some we need to ground truth that may be something else. But generally, you can kind of really pick them up on the satellite imagery. And one thing we know is that this rare earths, the uranium, the niobium, is in these radioactive pegmatites. That is one thing we have seen to be true at bobs and cusp. And so what we've done here is we've overlaid the pegmatites that we've interpreted, and we've also got the enhanced radiometric image there, which kind of then corresponds to these pegmatites. And what this allows us to do is also narrow down and target areas where you're starting to see these pegmatites associated with these uranium anomalies. And that'll allow us, with this next field season, to really get out to site and ground truth, take rock chip samples, do a bit of mapping, some soils, whatever we need to really validate these prospects. Now, the reason we're doing this is it's great that we've got bobs and cusp targets. I mean, these two could be drilled straight away, but what we feel is it'd be much more fruitful if we can have 10, maybe 15 of these targets like bobs and cusps. So when you do spend all the effort to get a drill rig out there, you're not just drilling 2 targets, but you've got about 15, maybe 10, 15 targets that we can put some holes through. And this gives us the best chance of making a mineral discovery. And so that's what the team's going to be endeavoring to do. And so we're very close to having our fully integrated geophysical and geological data set, where we'll really be able to start to look over all the data and prioritize areas for the upcoming field season. And that's due to commence in Q2. So next month, especially with the weather cooling down, the team will get back out on the site and really start to systematically go through all of these areas to follow up and then really line them up as drill targets. So next slide. So this is a bit of our systematic exploration approach. I think, my previous involvement in exploration and being involved in the discovery of the Northern Minerals Browns Range deposit, one thing we did do back in 2010 is we took a very thorough and systematic approach. And what that means is that we really can understand the mineralization first before we try and find the economic discovery. And so it's really started with stage 1 through to 6. We've done our due diligence and compiled all the historic data. Stage 2, we've already done 3 field programs there. We've been out to site. We've just flown detailed airborne radiometrics and magnetics. That was in January, and the geophysical interpretation is just being finished. This should be done this week. And really we're up to stage 5 and 6. So we're going to hopefully kick that off next month, where the team's going to get on the ground, do a bit of mapping, rock chip sampling, try to look for more prospects, more soil sampling if we need, and ground geophysics. So if there's areas that are of real interest that we really want to tighten up and get a bit more geophysical information, a lot more closer lines than we can do ground geophysics. In addition, I'd like to do some mineral characterization work. What kind of minerals are we dealing with? A bit of petrological work. That's basically putting these minerals under microscope to really see what we've got, what type of minerals are there, and then really drill target generation and prioritizing the targets. So then we'll have a good understanding of how many meters we want to drill and how many targets we're going to drill in this next season ahead of drilling. So a systematic approach, and I believe that's going to give us the best chance of understanding what we've got, but also making mineral discovery. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is Northwest Queensland. Now, this is our, I mentioned at the start, our value proposition. Harts Range is really an exploration to discovery. If we can make a discovery, I believe we will deliver a lot of shareholder value. Northwest Queensland, this is copper. A lot of people love copper, and especially anything you want to electrify, we need copper. And this is really our development value add to shareholders. And go to the next slide, Mel. Yeah, so Northwest Queensland is a really good jurisdiction, and it's a proven jurisdiction, and we've got 2.1 million tons of copper there, 1.1%. It's small at the moment, but it's got a decent grade. It's oxide, and there are a lot of plants in the area that kind of need more feed. So this area is quite a well-known area. You've got a lot of the majors there, Anglo America, Glencore, Rio. So we're really surrounded by a good pedigree of explorers. I mean, I call this the Beverly Hills of the Mount Isa Copper District. Just the ground is prime. And if you want to play in the copper space, especially in Australia, there's probably not a lot of places you'd really want to be. And this would be one of the places that I think it's worth being and spending time and money to make more discoveries. As you can see, we've got a significant land package. Sorry, just one back, Mel. We've got a significant land package, almost 1,000 square kilometers, and great infrastructure, and we're surrounded by a lot of processing plants in the vicinity as well. Next slide. Okay, so again, this is a bit of a heat map there, and you can see that you can see some of the main players in the region: Anglo, Glencore, Rio, FMG. In addition to our big one resource, we also have about 20 targets, some of them with copper mineralization at surface and IP kind of anomalies at depth. And so that's something we'd really like to explore as well, and really increase our resource and some of our inventory there. And so one of the more recent developments is that we've just recently in January signed a strategic alliance with a copper producer, Austral Resources. Their code is AR1. They have the Mount Kelly processing facility. We can go to the next slide. So you can see the Mount Kelly processing facility there. And we've just signed an MOU with them, which is very exciting. And what this is just really a win-win alliance. They really need more ore for their plant. We've got some high-grade oxide at the big one, and also we have some several stockpiles on site as well that we can start to process. So this is really a very exciting development, as this kind of gives us a bit of a pathway to you know, processing and mining and production. So I think you know, with this MOU in place, we really want to explore the synergies and how we can kind of scale up you know, activities at Northwest Queensland. Joel, did you want to tell us a little bit more about maybe some of the upcoming site visits to Mount Isa?
Yeah, no worries. So plans at the moment are to head to Mount Isa early May. Would like to get up to the big one and collect some composite samples from some of the old stockpiles there, put it through the mill and test that out, see how that goes. And it'd also just be good to get to site as well, see the Mount Kelly facility for myself and meet the geologist there who I've been in good communications with recently. And that's currently the main plan that we have to go to site, which is early May. If there's yeah, as well, I think another point to mention as well, Kevin, regarding the blend of the material going through from Austral at the moment, it's 0.5% copper, whereas we've got 1.1%. Like you said, we only have 2.1 million tons at the moment, but we're pretty optimistic given the deposit that we are at the moment, that there'll be more material to come from there. And touching on a little bit now as well regarding some of the satellite approaches for the deposit north of the big one. We've got the Mount Gordon fault passing and the Mount Oxide fault passing roughly through the north. This is a bit more geological, but it's a reason we're feeling optimistic. Yeah, thanks, Mel. Passing through that region there, it's directly underneath some of the anomalous zones, the 20 underexplored targets. So that's something we're pretty optimistic about and would like to be able to inspect on site eventually, maybe even this May, hopefully. We just have to make sure that hopefully the weather holds off and by May it should be okay. And to mention as well, there's also surface samples of azurite and malachite directly on top of these anomalies. So yeah, excited to see it. Next slide, please, Mel. Yeah, just an overview of the corporate structure and capital management at the moment. So 1.4 billion shares on issue at the moment, 61% remaining shareholders, and top 20% of the shareholders make up 39%. We've got a pretty invested team, board, as the board and the management team are quite invested in the company. Yeah, we're pretty optimistic, as Kevin had to say, particularly with the Harts Range project and seeing how this can carry ahead.
Okay, so just to wrap up, just a little investment summary here. Look, we've got some great suite of uranium, high value critical minerals, promising macro outlook. Look, I still think you know, uranium's come off a little bit, but again, I think it's going to play a significant role in you know, clean energy going forward. Australia's a great place. We've got a lot of it. Critical minerals, we've got uranium, sorry, niobium, heavy rare earths, a very unique geology there. That's kind of with some standout historical results. Tier 1 jurisdictions, Queensland, Northern Territory, fantastic, world-class, proven exploration, proven mining jurisdictions. So from a sovereign risk point of view, it's a great places to explore. And we really want to deliver some value through, you know, shareholder value through either a mineral discovery or, you know, developing our copper resource in Mount Queensland, where we've now got a bit of a pathway to some kind of production. So experienced team, you know, both corporately, technically, with some good track record and runs on the board. And what we want to do is really take a systematic approach to exploration and development of both of these assets. So two main assets, Harts Range and Northwest Queensland, that will be our focus. And hopefully we can have a success at one or the other, or if even better, both. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Hey, there was a bit of a lag there, so sorry guys, when I was flipping through to the next page. If anyone does have any questions, the Q&A, the chat box is available at the bottom. I have got a couple coming through, so I'll throw it out there and I'll let you guys decide who answers. But one question is, heavy rare earths, what's the difference between the heavy and the light? And the pricing, I suppose.
Okay. All right. So heavies and lights. So I think there's a saying that not all rare earths are created equal. And so I think when we talk about rare earths, you've got your lanthanide series, and within your lanthanide series, you have heavy rare earths and you have light rare earths. And probably one of the most crucial things is the value proposition for each of those. And with rare earths, you get all of them come together, but not all of them are valued the same amount. So for example, the light rare earths, neodymium, praseodymium, 95% of listed companies on the ASX or globally will have these NdPr, and they're probably selling right now for about $54.55 US a kilogram. They're your value for your NdPr, and you need them for your magnets. But the other two rare earths you need for your magnets are your heavy rare earths, which are called your dysprosium and terbium. Now, the value proposition for your dysprosium terbium, dysprosium is about 220 US a kilogram, and terbium is about 700 US a kilogram. So you can see all of a sudden the economics are very different for your heavies. And so the Harts range is dominated. We don't have the light rare earths, but we have the heavies. And the other thing to note is that outside of China, China is the main supplier of heavy rare earths. Outside of China, the only other major heavy rare earth deposit is Northern Minerals Browns Range, which I was involved in back in 2010. There's a few other globally, there's a few other deposits, but again, they're smaller, and the supply of heavies really comes from China. So we're hoping that we can really, this can be a real point of difference for us from every other rare earth explorer, and the fact that our suite of rare earths are dominated by these high value heavy rare earths. And that's pretty much the key. Again, you need these heavies for your permanent magnets, and that's really the main driver for markets going forward.
So I suppose, you touched on it before that uranium's taken a bit of a dip. There's always a commodity of the week, the month, the year. I suppose, which is it, the uranium, the heavy rare earths, or the niobium that you're most excited about when it comes to the Harts range?
Look, I think it's all of those commodities are very exciting, and probably last year and have quite been in vogue. Uranium, we had a big recently a uranium bull run. WA1 bought niobium back, and you see the rare earths. I mean, you see Trump wanting Greenland and wanting the rare earths from Ukraine. So it's no surprise all of those three minerals are in vogue. One interesting thing I should point out when people say, what's the focus? Now, with this in particular mineral that we've got, when you get the heavy rare earths, the niobium automatically comes with it. The uranium automatically comes with it. And that's just how the mineral, or the structure of the mineral characterization is made up of. So if we find one of them, you're going to get all three of them, and then we can deal with how we want to process that later. So I think in terms of the exploration strategy is we want to utilize the uranium anomalies to vector into the heavy rare earths and the niobium. I think so. To answer that question, I think that's what we're really chasing. But along the way, if we were to find a uranium deposit, so be it. So
Bonus.
yeah.
You just mentioned Trump, and there's a question that has come through. So I'll ask you, Kevin, what are your thoughts on Trump's ambitions to secure the rare earths from Greenland and Ukraine? What's the impact on the trade wars with respect to these rare earths?
Okay, so there's a couple of questions there. I'll answer in a couple of ways. So obviously Trump, the US, they want to be self-sufficient. They don't want to be reliant on China for rare earths. They understand that rare earths are so critical. They're actually technology metals. And so whoever controls these technology metals actually controls the next generation or the next wave of technology. So Trump realized they're very reliant on China for all their rare. In fact, the whole world is, especially with regards to processing. A lot of countries have got rare earth ore, but most roads lead to China with regards to processing and the end product of these magnets and wind turbines, all of these things coming back. So I think the Ukraine and the Greenland thing is to really be self-sufficient and not be reliant on China. The impact of these tariffs, I think, is really interesting geopolitically. If these trade wars go further and we see China turn off the tap to the US to these rare earths, all of a sudden you're going to start to see rare earth prices really start to spike and really run hard. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that is a big possibility if this trade war goes further and China really wants to push the US. The first thing they'd probably do is turn off the flow of these rare earths, in particular the high value heavy rare earths, which are very critical, especially for defense applications, magnets, all of those things.
Space, hey? I'm going to throw one to Joel, because you have been on site a fair bit and your photos are all across. You are in the photos of all these outcropping of pegmatites. They look huge. Is that an indication of how exciting this is?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, yeah, it is exciting because having there on the surface makes you think, well, how big could it be underneath? But to be honest, at the same time, like I remember Kevin actually saying with the Browns Range discovery, the discovery outcrop was only a couple meters wide. So I'd love to be honest to tell you that just because it's a massive surface outcropping, we're expecting something massive. But to be honest, yeah, I'm more excited about the geophysical survey information that we're getting back. We're waiting for the structural information from the MAG survey to come to us later in the week. I think that will be more telling about the size of the potential mineralization at Harts Range.
Yeah. So we all know that shareholders want to know, when are you drilling? And obviously it'll be a very exciting day when that happens. I've been really impressed with how systematic an approach that is being undertaken. Is it too early to tell about when that first drill hole will be, Kevin?
Yeah, look, and from a shareholder perspective, and that's something the company always needs to balance. Getting the geoscience right. The best thing a company can do is make a mineral. Especially in this game, is make a mineral discovery, and there's nothing that can be subsidized for a good systematic approach in terms of understanding what you've got. So that's what our plan is to outlay a systematic approach to understand the mineralization, get on the ground, validate targets. The ground truthing and the field work is going to commence in Q2, and look, we'd hope to be drilling in Q3, and I think we just want to get comfortable with knowing, maximizing all our targets, really understanding where to put the drill holes. I mean, you put these drill holes in the wrong place, then it could be the difference between hero or zero, So I think taking that time to be comfortable with the geoscience and doing the proper work will produce the best results. And back in 2010, when I was involved in the Browns Range project there, I was actually the senior project geo, kind of heading that up. And we started in 2009, I think, with 6 rock chip samples. Couldn't even pronounce half of these weird and wonderful rare earth names, let alone understand how to find them. And we took a systematic approach, and first thing we did was fly the airborne survey, exactly the same way we've done here at Harts Range. From there, identified discrete uranium anomalies, and then literally for 6 months, 7 months, with the field crew, we drove bush bash to each site and rock chip those sites, and literally made an inventory of prospects and targets, lined them all up, and then the following year we came in and we drilled them. And one of those targets was the Wolverine outcrop. As Joel said, it was tiny. It was about a couple of meters in length and maybe a meter wide, and that was just the tip of the iceberg sticking out of the ground. And 2011 we came back and drilled it, and this thing kind of had I think it went about 400 meters in length, 30 meters thick, and down to 500 meters depth. So it had an in-ground value at the time of several $1 billion. So it's a very exciting discovery, but again, those things don't just happen by accident. You need patience, you need money, you need a systematic and technical approach to this. So that's really what we want to deliver and to shareholders, and hopefully that
I suppose also, Kevin, it is cost efficient rather than once the drill starts, that's the exit bit, right? So it comes back to that shareholder value that you continue to talk about.
Yeah. Look, and that's a good question. So just in terms of cost, Harts Range is really not going to cost the company a lot of money. We're talking probably the 2 most expensive pieces is the airborne geophysical survey, and that's about $180,000. And then the drilling, which could be, depending on, I hate to putting a number on it, I mean, maybe $300,000 to $400,000, but that'll depend on how many drill targets we get. If we get 10 drill targets, it'll be X. If we get 20, then it'll be double that. So again, it's working out, how many meters we want to drill, how many targets we've got. But this whole exercise is very, very relatively inexpensive to kind of deliver the value that we want to deliver to shareholders. So
we've got time for one more. It's on the copper project, NWQ. Joel, the underexplored targets. Is there anything you can expand on there in that area?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so most of the underexplored targets that we've identified are just to the north of the big one, like I mentioned. It's hosted in volcanic sedimentary units. And yeah, we've got faulting, which we know is the control of mineralization in the area, which trend through Mount Gordon up into these anomalies. So that's something we're really excited about. And yeah, like I mentioned, we're aware that this fault system is a conduit for hydrothermal fluid, which had quite a significant amount of base metals in it, primarily copper. And from the surface, we've got copper oxides, and based on previous drilling campaigns, about 50, bit further than that down, we actually started to hit chalcopyrite. So we're pretty optimistic that in conjunction with the big one, these could potentially be satellite deposits in the future.
Okay, so I think we'll probably wrap it up now, guys. Thank you so much to everybody that took the time to tune in and listen. It's certainly an exciting time ahead. I suppose this week there's been such a decline in the US markets and everybody's probably freaking out. And in these times, there's always these amazing opportunities that we need to look at. And I think that New Frontier is definitely got something to be excited about and definitely an opportunity. So thank you, Joel, and thank you to Kevin. yeah, we'll keep watching and seeing as the next few months pan out.
Thanks, Mel, and thanks everyone for your time.
Thanks, everyone.